So this is Nicola Turner, and after spending the first 15 years of her career working in the global consumer goods industry, Nicola's life was set on a different trajectory with a personal quest to live more simply and more sustainably. Bringing together her understanding of human behaviour and her sustainability experience, Nick founded Mainstream Green as a social enterprise to inspire and create behaviour change in organisations and in communities. She is on a mission to make sustainability easy, normal, and feel good. A renowned speaker and writer, she helps kickstart and inspire everyday people on their sustainability journey. And we are so stoked to have you here today, Nick, to show us around your wardrobe so that we can learn and chat a bit about sustainable fashion. So passing over to you.
Awesome, cool. Thanks, Juliet. Kia ora koutou. Hi, everybody. Ko Nicola Turner toko ingoa ki Mainstream Green aho e mahi ana. So I'm Nicola from Mainstream Green, and I'm delighted to be welcoming you live streaming into my wardrobe today. So you're joining me live. I'm based in Cambridge or Kimberley down in the Waikato, depending on where you are. And yeah, I'm here today to talk all about sustainable fashion. And look, depending on where you read, often fashion is cited as being the second or third most polluting industry in the world, right? It's a pretty big deal in terms of its environmental footprint. And I think what I certainly didn't realize this early on in my sort of sustainability journey, but a big thing with fashion, or a lot of the things that we consume, is a lot of the impact of what we're buying and consuming and using happens before we even see it, before it even lands in our hands. So what I thought I'd do today is just talk you a little bit through the outfit that I'm wearing today. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I'm just wearing a black top and some jeans and my slippers because it's winter. And I just want to talk a little bit about the impact of this as a pretty typical outfit. So the top that I'm wearing is made out of polyester. A lot of the clothes that we wear today are synthetic or have at least some element of synthetic fabric in it. So polyester is derived from oil. So to make this top, oil was drilled, and then it was probably sent somewhere to a factory with its own sort of emissions to be processed, and then it was probably sent somewhere else to be turned into the fabric. And often, obviously, this is black, so a lot of sort of dyes and other chemical additives would have had to go in to make it. And then it was probably sent to another factory where it was made into the top. And look, we don't know a lot about that factory, but that factory probably had, obviously has its own emissions. It probably had lots of people working in there, and we don't know a lot about the treatment of those workers. Lots of materials were used to make it, probably lots of water. Obviously, I've talked about the dyes. On average, a cotton t-shirt is often quoted as using 2,700 litres of water to make it. So a lot of water can go into making these clothes. And then it's probably loaded onto a plastic wrap pallet and shipped halfway around the world to get to us in New Zealand. This one was made in Vietnam, which is about 9,500 kilometres. So that's how far it's had to travel to get to us here in New Zealand. And then it's probably loaded onto a truck and trucked to a distribution centre somewhere. And then it's probably packaged up again and put on a courier van to be driven to the shop that we then probably hop in our car to drive to buy it, right? So all of that impact has gone into making this top before I even bought it, right? And if I look at the outfit that I'm wearing today, I did a little bit of a quick tally up on it. And a super rough estimate would be that about 10,000 litres of water were used to make the outfit that I'm wearing today. And collectively, the things that I'm wearing have probably travelled about 50,000 kilometres to get here, right? And then there's all of those other things, right? If it was cotton, there's probably pesticides that have been used to grow it. There's all of, there's all of those transport emissions, obviously, that we've talked about. There's the dyes. I'm wearing a leather belt. So, the tanning process would have been used to make that. So all of that stuff, all of that embedded impact is coming with the clothes that we're buying. And then we wear them often for a really short amount of time. Most clothes these days are worn less than 10 times, right? So we're not wearing them for very long, and then they have to go somewhere when we're finished with them. Now, maybe they get donated and sold, or we pass them on to someone, but the sheer volume of stuff that we're sort of comes to its end of its life, it's actually estimated that every second around the world, a rubbish truck full of textile waste goes to landfill or is burned, right? So that just kind of gives you a feeling of the scope of it, because the impact of fashion it's just because we're consuming so much. You know, I remember in my lifetime that there used to be, when I was a child, there were two fashion seasons, warm and cold, right? You go into the stores when it was getting warmer and there'd be new trends coming out, and then you'd go into the stores when it was getting colder and there'd be other trends coming out. Now, if you walk into a high street fashion store, new trends are coming in more than weekly, right? So there's more than 52 fashion seasons now. If we look at sort of the fast fashion, which is often what it's called, fast fashion industry, they're just churning out really, really high volumes of clothes. They're generally lower quality. They're generally pretty low cost. So we buy them and use them almost as if they're disposable, right? So it's that pure volume game that is creating the issue with fashion. And yep, we can donate our clothes, but when the quality is not good and when there's so damn much of it, there's just too much for those stores to process. And often, like I was saying, those textile waste or those clothes will end up being burned or landfilled. So that's kind of the state of it. And I promise this whole session is not going to be this depressing. We're going to just flip it over and talk about the things that we can do. But that's kind of the state of it, right? Our fashion consumption is having a really, really massive impact on the world around us. And when that light bulb kind of went off for me, I started going, well, what can I do about it? And so I started going down the sustainable fashion rabbit hole, and I started reading up a lot on, well, what's the most sustainable fabric, right? What items can I choose? What are they made of? How can I educate myself to really understand what's the most sustainable fabric? Or maybe I look at where those clothes are being made and how far they've had to travel. Or maybe I look at who's made them. What are the ethics and the treatment of the workers that have been involved in making them? Or maybe I look at what happens to these products at the end of their life? Are there options for that? And I actually found myself getting pretty overwhelmed, right? Because there was a lot to think about and also lots of conflicting information. And also I just found myself kind of being paralyzed into the state of inaction because I'm like, I just don't know what the right choice is. So then I kind of zoomed out and I looked at it and I went, well, actually, I feel like the best thing we can do in terms of being more sustainable with our fashion is to buy less and wear it more. And there's lots and lots of different ways we can do that, but that kind of became my North Star, right? And shortly I'm going to talk you through, well, how do I do that? How do I bring that to life in terms of my fashion choices? But yeah, that really became my ethos. And as soon as I focused on that, I went, okay, cool. Now I get it. If I use that as kind of my North Star, then it really helped keep me on track. And so what I want to talk about is my 3 approaches to buying less and wearing it more. And by no means is this the only way you can do it. By no means is it, the perfect way to do it. I just share it on the basis that maybe it will inspire something in you, or maybe it will reassure you of something that you're already doing, or maybe it will kind of spring you into your own journey of change. But yeah, like I said, there'll be some things that really resonate with you, some things that won't. I see sustainability as a whole as sort of a choose your own adventure, right? So I'm just going to share some of the things that I do, pick and choose what you want, and let's get into it. So I sort of summarize it into the 3 L's in terms of my approach to fashion. So the first one is all about loving things. For things to make it into my wardrobe, I have to really, really love them. And there's a statistic that on average, we only regularly wear, I say this in terms of this is a statistic for women, but men aren't much different, to be honest. We only regularly wear 20 to 30% of what's in our wardrobe, right? The rest of it is just kind of noise. And I know if I reflect on my habits, and you may find the same with yours, is we always reach for the same things, right? Those things that you feel really comfortable in, those things that you feel really good in. And that kind of, on average, is only 20 to 30% of what we buy and what we have in our wardrobe. So for me, at the beginning of my journey, it was all about getting to that 20 to 30%, getting rid of that other 70, 80% that was just becoming noise. And so that's what you'll see in my wardrobe behind me. There's not a lot of stuff in there. And I've probably been refining my approach, I guess, to fashion over the last sort of 8 to 10 years. And I found that over time, I've got adjusted to having less and less. At one time, I didn't have enough in my wardrobe, and then I kind of swung back a little bit. And everybody's sort of level of enough is different, but this is my level of enough. And this is pretty much that 20 to 30%, whereas I would have used to have a lot more in my wardrobe. In terms of my golden rule for what comes into my wardrobe, like I said, I have to really love something. If I try something on it's just a real hard, honest conversation with myself to go, do I love it? Do I feel good in it? Right? On average, and I've done the maths, on average, things in my wardrobe, the average age of them is 8 years in my wardrobe, right? So they've been in there for a long time. So if I look, this is a leather jacket that I bought when I was pregnant with my now 10-year-old. I remember trying it on when I was heavily pregnant. I could not do the zip up, but that's something that I'll have probably for at least another 10 years. I love it and wear it all the time. This is a skirt that I bought 8 years ago. Same thing, love it. It's more of a summer gig, although you could obviously dress it up with boots. Been in my wardrobe for 8 years. When I went traveling, I remember buying that. So that's kind of my acid test to go, well, am I happy with it being in my wardrobe for 8 years? Now, it's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes I'll, cut myself a bit of slack, but generally that's kind of, the test that I put on myself. Will I be happy wearing it for that long? If the answer is yes, then sweet as. I obviously love it. The other thing I like to think about or have an idea of is what my style is. Now, when I say my style, it's just kind of like the color palette or the cuts that I know I feel good in and that suit me. Now, I actually had my colors done, I don't know, probably 20 years ago. You know how you can go to a stylist and have your colors done and they give you lots of advice on those kinds of things. And it's a pretty cool process to do. It's actually a really great idea, for a Christmas or a birthday gift, if that's something that you're interested in exploring. But I had it done a long time ago. And if you want to go down that avenue, absolutely do it. But also you probably just inherently know, you know which colors you reach for, which colors when you look in the mirror, you feel really good in. Well, there's lots of tools online as well that can help you find that. And sort of knowing my color palette and knowing, I don't know, the neck styles that suit me or the length of things that I feel good in, that helps me navigate as well. If I'm looking for things and I try it on and it's not quite the right color or it's not quite the right cut, then I also know I'm not going to love it and I'm not going to reach for it. I have a thing with showing my knees. There's nothing wrong with my knees. They're amazing. They hold me up every day. I love my knees, but I just don't feel like I suit short things that show my knees, right? And occasionally I'll sort of try on a skirt and it'll be just sitting on my knee, right? And I'll kind of shuffle it down. And I'm like, okay, if I pull it down, it'll kind of cover my knees, but then you'll start walking and it will obviously kind of show them. And I've done that, I don't know, a handful of times in my life where I kind of bought something that's just not quite the right length and I've always regretted it and I've never ended up wearing it all the time, right? So again, it's just kind of really leaning in and trusting your instincts on the things that you love and make you feel good. And that having that filter means that not that much stuff comes into my wardrobe, right? If it does, I really love it and it's going to stay in there for a really long time. So the second L, so the first one being all about loving it, the second L for me is about looping things. How do we keep things going, right? If that North Star is all about buying less, which we sort of talked about in that love it phase, how do we wear it more? How do we keep things going around and around and around? And one thing that I do a lot of, which is one way of sort of looping things, is buying secondhand. I would say 95% of the stuff that I buy and own is secondhand. I draw the line at a few things. I don't buy secondhand underwear. Some people do, and that's all good, but I draw the line at that. But everything else, pretty much, I would always start first by trying to source secondhand, because my attitude is there's already enough clothes in the world. There'd be enough clothes in the world. I read a stat on it once. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's enough clothes in the world to keep us clothed for a very, very long time without needing to make any more. So that's kind of my lens of how do we wear things more? How do we keep things going over and over again? So yeah, buying secondhand is a really big one. The easier thing to do would probably be to pick things out of my wardrobe that I bought new, which would be this. This has actually become a bit of a statement piece for me. I bought this when I moved back from London in 2009. And I still wear it to this day. And actually it's become, I do quite a lot of speaking events, and it's become the top that I tend to wear for my speaking events. A little bit of a statement in terms of, I don't have to wear something different every time I speak. Actually, why don't I wear it over and over again? It becomes a little bit of a statement for repeat wearing, right? Normalizing the fact that it's okay to be seen in the same thing over and over again. And that's another example of looping it. So wearing things over and over again. And again, I remember when I was sort of first on this journey that I started doing that, and I'm like, what are people going to think of me? You know, people are going to judge me for wearing the same clothes all the time. But you see, there's this concept in psychology called the spotlight effect. And that means that we think people notice us and what we're wearing way more than they actually do, right? It turns out we're way too busy focusing on ourselves. So often people aren't really noticing us at all. So that's one good thing. The second thing is, if I wear the same thing over and over again and people are going to judge me for it, that's kind of on them, you know, that's not on me. Because to me, actually the greatest form of respect we can give an item of clothing is to wear it over and over again, right? And to keep it going. So that's kind of a big part of that, wearing it more. The other thing under that, looping it and wearing it more, is all about, because I don't have a lot in my wardrobe and because I have it for a really long time, I want to be able to remix it in lots of different ways, right? So as you'll see, I have a pretty obvious color palette. Generally, it means that everything goes with everything. So I can kind of mix and match quite easily. I have a few staples, like I wear black jeans a lot, and I'll have a casual pair and a formal pair, even though those two things cross over as well. But then I can kind of, you know, if I've got those kind of staples and I've got, you know, this array of tops, and I've got another couple of pairs of pants or skirts, then I can mix those in so many different ways, right? And then there's also a few things, like I have a thing for scarves. I say that, I've only got 3, but I sometimes have a few more coming in. So I have a few scarves, and scarves are a way for me that I can really kind of completely change an outfit, right? So the clothes I'm wearing today, I'm just wearing a pair of blue jeans, actually, just to mix it up. Blue jeans on the bottom, black top. I could throw a scarf on and a pair of sneakers, or I could throw a blazer on and a pair of heels or a pair of flats. And those are 2 really different looks that all I've done is mix up the shoes and a scarf, right? So accessorizing with scarves or with belts. I've got a few different belts, you know, a few statement belts like this that go with a pair of shoes, by the way. You know, and a few different accessories or necklaces. I've got a few necklaces here. These necklaces actually, these would absolutely knock up my 8-year thing, because these belong to my stepfather's mother, who would have been 110, I think, if she was still alive. So those were 2 things that I inherited from her, and they really mix up, you know, something as simple as a necklace or a scarf can really mix things up. And you can probably watch a video on YouTube, I'm sure there's many, about all the different ways you can fold a scarf too, right? I tend to just do a real classic where I like long rectangular ones, and I just kind of tie them into a loop. It's a big loop like that. Throw it on so it's really long like that, and then I just do this. So I do a lot of that. Chuck a jacket on, and then also, especially if you've got young children, you know, especially when my kids were a lot younger, you'd always need cloths, or the kids will need a blanket, or the kids will need something if you're driving in the car and the sun's coming in, and you'd hang those in the car window as a sunshade. Very multi-purpose. You can use it for many things. So that's another way that I loop things. So we've talked about loving things. We've talked about looping things. And the last L that I wanted to talk about in terms of my approach to buying less and wearing it more is all about looking after things. So looking after things, again, you know, if we want things to last, then we need to look after them. And that can be as simple as the fact that I don't have that much stuff in my wardrobe. It makes it a lot easier to look after, right? I don't know if it's come with age or not, but I'm way better at hanging things up now than I used to be. I make sure they're hung up properly, or stored properly, or folded properly. And again, a lot easier to do that if, you know, the less you own. The other thing that I do when it comes to looking after things is, if things need to be fixed or repaired, again, if I don't have a lot and I love it, then I'm very happy to take the time or spend the money to have things fixed or repaired or even altered. You know, I've got a few jackets that I've had altered over the years that are like, okay, maybe I changed size, or maybe the fashion changed and I've changed the length of it, or I've had something hemmed, or I've had something added or made smaller. Again, the less you have and the more you love it, the more you're going to be prepared to do that. Generally, my attitude is to, if something is broken or needs fixing or altering, I'll try and do it myself. I have very basic skills. I'm an average to poor sort of sewer or mender, but my first stop is always, if it's a basic repair, then I will do it myself. And funnily enough, I just did a repair before this call. I've got a singlet on under my top, just a bamboo singlet. I've actually got 2 of them because I wear them under everything. So this is an example here. And you know how the straps start to go? Like the straps will often lose their elasticity. So all I did with this one, actually the one that I'm wearing, is I just cut the strap off, shortened it, stitched it on again, right? So a simple adjustment like that will get me at least another season out of that singlet. So really simple things like that I'll do myself. Another example I've got is things like jeans and my daughter's tights. You know, she wears a lot of leggings, those sorts of things. I will often, over the years, I've tried to sort of repair things tidily, but often I don't have much success in trying to hide the repair. So I actually go for the approach of visible mending these days. So how do you actually make the repair or the mend that you're doing part of the garment? How do you celebrate it? How do you celebrate imperfection? And there's a kintsugi as an approach to broken ceramics, a Japanese art of repairing things and, you know, sort of making the cracked repair really visible using gold leaf paint, and it's beautiful. Sashiko is another Japanese art of visible repairing. So you can see here these visible stitches on the back of my jeans here. So I'd often put like an iron, you know, one of those iron-on patches or a piece of fabric that I've got on the back, and then stitch it on, and instead of trying to hide it, making it a real feature. So if you're keen to know more, that's called sashiko stitching. And again, there's so many YouTube clips and examples of how to do that. And yeah, it can be really fun. And then the other thing to do in terms of looking after things, so this is an example, which is my white sneakers. So these would be in their 4th season, which is pretty good going for white sneakers. A couple of the things, you know, again, I'll just sort of always make sure that I've got some white, you know, shoe polish. So I'm always kind of cleaning these and keeping them looking as good as they can. Shoelaces, this is the 3rd pair of shoelaces that I've gone through with these shoes. A new pair of shoelaces can be a game changer in terms of zhuzhing up your shoes. Or I use a product called oxygen bleach, which is basically just a much sort of more natural, gentler form of hydrogen peroxide. Normally comes in a powder. I just soak them in a little jar of oxygen bleach overnight, wash them, and it whitens up the shoes really well. If they're canvas shoes, you could wash soak your shoes in that as well. Obviously these are leather, so I just clean these with shoe polish. But honestly, cleaning them with shoe polish, washing the shoelaces or replacing them if they really need replacing, has kept these shoes going for so much longer than they could have. I've just noticed the soles are starting to go on these. So I'm like, okay, I'll take these to a shoe repair person and see if I can just put some kind of another extra layer on the bottom that will keep them going for another however long as well. And the other thing to think about, which is one of my favorite sustainability tips, is to wash our clothes less. So we wash our clothes, well, I shouldn't say we, I say a lot of us wash our clothes way more than they actually need to be washed. Often it just becomes a habit. And I see this in my children all the time, right? They wear something, maybe they've only been wearing it for an hour if they've got home from school or something, and their default is to throw it in the washing basket, right? And often we get into that habit. We wear something once, we throw it in the washing basket, we wash it. Now, washing things, one, it takes time. It's definitely not my favorite thing to do. Maybe it's yours, I don't know, but it takes time. So I'm all for washing less if I can get away with it. It also takes energy, in terms of the electricity. It also takes water. And it also, we're normally obviously adding some kind of detergent to it as well, right? So the less we wash, the less impact we're having in terms of that. But also when a lot of the clothes that we have are synthetic fibers these days, or have synthetic fibers mixed into them, fabrics aren't stable. So anytime there's friction on synthetic fibers, so that friction could be wearing them, but also washing them especially, they actually shed. They shed these tiny little, they're called microfibers, but essentially on synthetic fabrics, which are petroleum, derived from oil, petroleum based, essentially it's tiny, tiny little pieces of plastic that are shedding every time they kind of encounter friction. And a lot of that happens when we're washing them. And they're so little that they escape through most washing machine filters and obviously are making their way out into our waterways, etc. You can buy, there's a few brands. One brand that's springing to mind is called a guppy bag. You can buy these special bags that you put your garments in and wash, and they have a very fine mesh that is small enough to capture all of those microfibers. But the easier thing to do is just to wash these clothes less. Now, it's not about giving up on your personal hygiene at all. It's just sort of questioning, actually, do I need to wash this garment as frequently as I am? Or can I get away with just popping it outside in the sunshine and giving it a bit of an air? One of the senior guys at Levi Strauss, the jean maker, actually came out and said, you don't have to wash your jeans. We're washing our jeans way too frequently. And they talk about actually never washing your jeans and popping them in the freezer, for example, to kind of kill off anything, or popping them out in the sun. So there's, basically often it's a habit that we're just washing our clothes way more than we actually need to. That's having more impact than it needs to, and often sort of speeding up that release of microfibers as well. So look, that's just a few tips to get you started and warmed up to my approach to sustainable fashion. For me, it's very much about having that ethos of how do we buy less and wear it more. And like I said, there's multiple ways we can do that. But for me, it's all about how do I really love the things that I already have and make sure if anything's going to make it into my wardrobe that I really love it. So that's going to be in there for a really long time. How do I loop it? How do I keep things going around for as long as I can in terms of being able to wear things in different ways, being able to source secondhand, and how do I really look after the things that I have as well to keep them going? So whether that's, repairing things or altering things, or also looking after them and washing them less. So that's it for me. Obviously we've got some time for some questions now, Juliet. I'm not sure if anything's come through, but yeah, stoked to have you guys here and very happy to answer any of the questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Nick. That was awesome. I'm feeling super inspired. I want to get into my wardrobe right now. I only wear 20 to 30% of what's in there. So yeah, I feel like I could definitely do some changing of habits. Most of my stuff is secondhand, but still, I think, you don't just need to buy stuff just because it's secondhand as well, if it's just going to clutter up your wardrobe.
Yeah, and it's one thing that I often say to people as well is, especially if you go op shopping where things are really cheap, again, one kind of question that I always ask myself is, would I buy it if it was full price?
Yeah.
Because often when things are cheap and also you're feeling good about buying secondhand, it is easy to end up buying something you need again. Yeah. And
that's your whole first L. Do I actually love it, or am I just buying it because it's a bargain? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone have any questions that they want to ask Nick?
See anything else in my wardrobe?
I'm quite interested in the top next to the blue top. Can we have a closer look at that one?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Are you feeling like that's because it's a little bit off my regular palette?
Well, it is quite different to the rest, and I'm just interested in it.
Yeah. It is quite different to the rest. And I have a group of there's nine of us, 8 of my friends, so 9 of us catch up once a year. We live sort of all over the country and we've known each other we went to school together. Yeah. And everybody will bring things that they have. We do like a very informal clothes swap.
Yeah, so such a good idea.
Looks at their wardrobe and goes, I'm not reaching for this anymore. They'll bring things that they're finished with. And often it's just that they're sick of it. And the rest of us go, oh, love it,
Yeah.
Variety. So this was one of those. And it was a little bit of it's a little bit off-piste for me. But it was one of those things where it's like, I'm going to try it in my wardrobe and see how I go with it. And I've actually worn it quite a lot. So I'll normally wear it underneath a blazer or I've actually got this really, because I like things that can be really multifunctional. So I'll just put that back over here. I bought this at a secondhand store in Mount Maunganui, I don't know, years ago, probably 10 years ago now. And it's a, I don't know what you'd call it, like a very drapey jacket that kind of goes, so you put it on like this. And it's just this big kind of flowy sort of thing. And I'll often wear that with that. And it's one of those really good in-between season things. And I love this because I can just do this and pop it in my handbag or
Oh, yes, yeah.
so that's become, I think about that for pieces as well. How multifunctional is it, and that I can wear, over something like that, and it's good for summer or sort of shoulder seasons, or I could wear something warm under it and get, so kind of transitional seasons. And yeah, that's the same. Like that's obviously a really summery top, but I'll wear it in winter
with a blazer. Yeah,
yeah.
Cool. No, I love it. And I also love what you said about, I'd never heard of the spotlight effect, but I have thought about that often, people who are so worried about being seen in something twice. It's like, no one else is going to notice. And also, what you said, if they do, I think they're the one with the problem.
Yeah, and there was a really famous example, and my memory is terrible, but she was like the editor of a fashion magazine, like something really big, like Vogue.
Yeah.
She did this experiment where it was like she wore the same base outfit for like weeks on end. See if anybody noticed, and they didn't.
And mixed it up with scarves and stuff like that. And wow.
And that was in a high sort of, fashion environment.
Yes, where people are actually looking.
You think people are looking.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Oh, that's very cool. Hey, someone had to leave early, but they did say thank you so much and that you're a great inspiration, and we have hugely cut waste in our houses, in our home, inspired by you.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
So that's really nice. So if there's no questions, we'll sign off. Just a huge thank you to you, Nick, for giving up your time on this Saturday at the start of the school holidays. We really, really appreciate it. You're such a fantastic speaker, and we really appreciate your experience and knowledge. It's awesome.
Lovely. And thanks.
Hey.
Thanks, Sharon.
Hi, Nicola. Hey, hi. I've got a question for you, but first, your wardrobe is incredible. I'm just looking at it and going, oh my gosh, and very much aware that mine is anything but that is, what I'm looking at on screen is where I'd like to get to. So it was great hearing about the 3 hours, and they're all very easy to do and quite practical. I guess for me, the question is, where I'm probably at the very start of that journey, I think. So what would be your advice for first step and not to get too overwhelmed? Yeah.
So you're kind of faced with quite a full wardrobe at the moment.
Two wardrobes. And, I don't wear, I'll probably wear about 10%, 20% of the clothes, but there's that also that emotional attachment a little bit, I think, or I bought that a few years ago, but it cost me a fortune and I don't want to throw it away, but I just don't wear it. So what would be your advice for there?
Okay. So I'll just throw a few different things at you because again, it's really personal. But in terms of the approach that I used, again, I didn't go from where I was to that overnight. That's the first thing to reiterate, I guess. And like I said, it's been this process over time where I sort of went, okay, I went from this much to this much. And I went, okay, cool. Yep. Okay, I'm getting used to this. And then I went, actually, I can go to this. And then I can go to this. And then I can do this. And then I went like this. I went, no, that's too far. So again, it did become, because you have to adjust to it, and it can feel really uncomfortable. So I totally get that. So first of all, don't expect that you're going to go from this to this overnight. See it as a journey. How I approached it in terms of, okay, I've got all of this stuff in my wardrobe. I know that 70 to 80% of it is noise, or 80 to 90%, depending on where you're at. I did the classic kind of Marie Kondo approach, right? Where I pulled everything out of my wardrobe and laid it out. Because the first thing that made me realize, because you can stack things and order things, and it can actually make it look like you haven't got that much stuff. Whereas when I sort of pulled everything out, I'm like, whoa. And I found that quite interesting to go, okay, I do actually have a lot, because, compared to a lot of my friends, I didn't, but that helped me kind of visually just kind of go, there's a lot in there. And you can very quickly see things where you're like, okay, no, that's an easy out. So I did it that way. And I started, I picked off the real low-hanging fruit to begin with, the real stuff that you just like, I never wear it, I haven't worn it for ages, I don't like it, or whatever that might be, right? So that was kind of my first round. Then what I did was I went, oh, there's some stuff in there that I'm not sure about. And so what I did was I packaged that. I packaged it up and put it in a box, and I put it kind of out of sight, out of mind. So in the spare room, in the garage, wherever that might be. And that's an approach that's, I don't know if you've watched the minimalism documentary on Netflix. There's a couple of guys, and they've just released another one. Yeah. And they talk about having a packing party where you pack stuff up and then you put it out of sight and out of mind, and give yourself a time limit, right? So for me, it was sort of 6 months to get me over that seasonal kind of change. And I went, okay, I haven't missed anything in that box. I'm actually just going to take that straight away and donate that or pass it on to my friends. I've kind of sorted it out so that it was ready to go, because that allows you that emotional bridge to kind of go, I've still got it. I'm not getting rid of it. It's still there. But, you know, if you don't miss it, then you can kind of move it on. So that was another thing that I still do to this day. Like, there was a beautiful knit jersey that I had bought last season, and I love it. It's beautiful, but I just don't feel that good in it. And so same thing, I've kind of put it aside, and I wore it, you know, I kind of pulled it out because I saw it the other day and it was really cold, and I put it back on and I wore it for another day and went, nah, I'm still not feeling the love, you know. So it kind of allowed me to transition out of that. So there's that. And then the other thing to do is, even if that, you know, all feels a little bit too much, have you ever heard of, there's that hanger technique where you turn hangers around? Have you heard of that one?
Yes, I have. Yeah. So you turn it around when you wear it or something.
Yeah, exactly. You have all of your hangers facing one way. If you wear it, you take it out, you turn it around, and then after a set amount of time, you go back and you look at it and you go, oh, I'm not wearing that, not wearing that, not wearing that. On the emotional kind of attachment to clothes, totally get that. I had an ongoing emotional attachment to a denim jacket of mine that I had bought probably in the late 90s, and I never wore it, but I just couldn't pass it on. There was just something in me that meant I just really wanted to keep holding on to it. And I did the full Marie Kondo on that. You know how she talks about holding an item in your hands and going, does it spark joy in me? So that was the first sort of step. And then the second thing is thanking something for its service. And so I took that jacket and I held on to it, because for me, it was, I don't know, it was just a stage in my life, and I'd worn it to lots of amazing things, and I'd bought it with a really good friend of mine, and kind of looking at it and holding it in my hands and going, we've had some good times together, right? Thank you. But now it's time for you to go off and have good times with someone else, because it was still a wicked jacket, but it just wasn't, you know, didn't suit me, or I didn't reach for it anymore. And as, you know, maybe that sounds a bit woo-woo, I don't know, but that actually really helped me to kind of acknowledge that I had an emotional attachment to it, and then pass it on. And, you know, if it's a cost thing, which is very real as well, you know, a lot of people do spend a lot of money on things and then never wear it, but you still have that connection going, I should wear it because I've spent that money on it. I often have I sort of have a philosophy that if I am holding on to things that could be out in the world and I'm not using it, and it could be out in the world being used by other people, to me, that's a really big waste. A waste of stuff, a waste of money, a waste of time and clutter in my wardrobe. So that having that mindset helps me move things on as well. You know, kind of realizing that actually somebody else could love this and somebody else could get use out of it. You know, has really helped in terms of, you know, for me being able to move things along as well. And then also when you get, you know, especially if you've got a lot in your two wardrobes, which it sounds like you do, I think, you know, freeing up space and having less, there's so many benefits in that as well, in terms of it's way easier to keep it tidy, it's way easier to find the things that you like, it's way easier to look after things. You feel like you've actually got more. There's this really weird paradox of, you know, our human brain, that we think more, you know, having more is a good thing, having more choice is a good thing, but there's actually only so much choice that our brains can cope with. So when I worked in the FMCG industry, we used to do this, which is the supermarket industry, we used to do this experiment with shoppers where we'd put them in front of a supermarket, you know, a bay, what you call a bay, a section of supermarket shelves, and say we'd put them in front of one section of supermarket shelves and there'd be 300 different products on it. And then we'd put them in front of another section of supermarket shelves, same size, but there'd be 70 products on it, and they'd just be faced up, you know, to fill in the gaps. And most of the time, people would say that there's more choice in the shelving unit with less products in it, because our brains can process it more. So once you sort of start freeing up some space, however you choose to do that, you'll probably go, whoa, this feels really good. And then that will help motivate you, to move on and do more as well.
Right, well, we will sign off. Thanks again, Nick. That was fantastic. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thank you all for coming, and a wonderful plastic-free July.
Kia ora. Thanks, Juliet. Thanks, everybody, for joining. See you later. Ka kite.
Bye.